Friends, this is Christoph from UNIspotter. He's going to, as you can see the slide, he's presenting on Buddy Chat. So what does it mean? Basically, he's going to tell you how to use technology to get your application correct. He will help you to get a smart CV. He will help you to get admission in the best universities in Europe. So what else do you want? Over to you, Christoph.
Cool.
So now, Christoph, you can start your presentation. You just move to...
Perfect.
Okay.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks a lot for this very nice introduction. I'm very happy to present today a bit about UNIspotter. So it's not, so for those of you who have been joining other presentations, so this time I don't want to talk too much about like in-depth about universities because you meet so many universities today, but I rather want to build up my presentation. So it's called already Buddy Chat, to talk a bit about other things than just universities. So I want to focus on 3 or actually 4 things, which is on the one side, the weather in Europe. Then I want to talk a bit about visa and about accommodation. And at the end, I want to share also a bit about my studying experience in Europe. So just a brief introduction, what UNIspotter is. UNIspotter is basically an app where we guide students step by step through the university application journey, because we saw lots of students using or going to consultants or agents, and we said, well, actually, young people in India, everybody has a smartphone, access to mobile internet. Why don't we make this whole journey easy on the smartphone? So we created an app called UNIspotter, where you can browse and search for universities, you get guidance along the way, and we connect you with a buddy, so we call it buddy, who is helping you along the way for individual questions as well. And I've been doing that now for the past 5, almost 6 years now, since we created UNIspotter, literally right after university. But I want to share a bit about the story, how we got there at the end of my talk. So I want to start the buddy chat a bit about Europe. So I am originally from Austria. So Austria is in the middle of Europe, very small country, only 8 million people live there. But one of the questions in the past 2 years, especially, that I always get when I was in India, so I spent a lot of time in South India and across India, was how's the weather in Austria, or in general, how's the weather in Europe? So I want to start with the weather, and I prepared a little graphic just to give you a quick overview about the temperatures that you can expect. So as in the previous presentation about Sweden, you already heard that it can get freezing cold in Sweden, which is in the very north of Europe. And if you look at this map, you can see in the south of Europe, so for example, Spain, Italy, also south of France, also other parts like Greece, it can get really hot in summer. So between 30 and 40 degrees. So those are really hot temperatures. And then if you go a bit like into the middle of Europe, where around France, Germany, also Austria, and then you go towards Hungary and Eastern Europe, you have more like mild temperatures. So summer it can get really hot, but it's really nice weather. It's really warm. It's really enjoyable. So where I grew up in Austria, I'm literally in the middle of Europe, and the weather is just perfect in summer. So it's not too hot, but it's really nice and warm. So that's really cool. But then if you go to Northern Europe, for example, as we talked before, Sweden, Norway, it's mild weather in summer. So it's really nice, but if you then turn it around in winter, it can get really cold as well. And in terms of Southern Europe, in summer or in winter as well, it's not very cold, but it gets a bit colder, but it's still very nice and mild weather in the south of Europe. And in Central Europe, it depends a bit always on the time of the year. It can get colder, but this is just a rough overview for you I wanted to give you. The next topic I wanted to talk about is getting your visa, because I think that's also the second part where I get lots of questions around, because every country in Europe is different, and getting your visa can be sometimes quite challenging, and there are lots of things to consider. But I want to just go briefly into a few things. So I assume some of you have been thinking already about visa. Some of you might not know exactly about what you need for visa. So I want to start with the basics, and basically who can apply and when can you apply for visa. So anyone who wants to travel outside basically of the country can apply for foreign country visas. You can apply for visa typically 90 days before your start date for visa in many countries, and you can travel for the destination before 30 days of your start date. And some countries give you also permission to travel to the country and extend your visa after enrolling. So it really varies a bit between country and country. Moving forward, the types of visas. There are long stay visas, there are short-term visas, so it's above or below 90 days. You have visitor visas, for example, if your parents want to visit you as well. And then sometimes you have also study visas. So that's depending also again on the country. The typical documents that are required for visas, so it's not always the same, but it's very often those are the documents that you need, which is a passport that is valid and typically valid at least 6 months, a visa appointment letter with a visa application form printed and signed, then admission letter, obviously that's really important, from the university. So that's the first step towards a visa. Educational documents, like everything from your 10th or 12th standard, diploma, degrees, any mark sheets that you have. And if you have done any tests like the GRE or GMAT, will be really important or helpful, or the IELTS or TOEFL test. That's also one of the important parts. Typically you need to have photographs, and typically also to have an accommodation proof and booked air tickets if required. So that again depends a bit, but those are the typical documents that you need in order to get your visa. In terms of financial documents, there are also typically some documents that you need in terms of a bank loan sanction letter agreement, copy of the bank. If there's things, a bank statement that they're minimum of 6 months with the bank balance certificate. So there are a few things, again, depending on the country, how you can move forward here to get your financial documents ready. And then there are some supportive documents. For example, from sponsors, the cover letters sometimes needed, IT documents sometimes. And so there are a couple of things, and I don't want to confuse you today. I just want to make sure that when you apply that you're aware of what you need. But in order to actually then do your visa, you can always connect with one of our buddies who can then support you with what steps do you need to take, which documents do you need. And I will afterwards also tell you how to get in touch with a buddy via our app, but also through WhatsApp. So I'll jump over this and I will basically come right here. So how you can contact us in terms of if any questions around visa is our WhatsApp number is 989-444-9989. I will also share that afterwards here in the chat. But if you want to take a screenshot right now, feel free to have that number always ready. So this is a number where you can always reach one of our buddies on the ground in India. I think I haven't mentioned that before, but we have an office as well in the south of India. So that's our only first office currently in India. Across the world, we have currently 5 offices. And in Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu is our current India office, and we hopefully also expand to further offices. But you can always reach our team in South India for questions. You can obviously download our app, unispotter.com/app, where you can find lots of information about the topics I talk about. And if you're from South India or Coimbatore or near Coimbatore, you can obviously always just come to visit our office. Moving forward to the next topic, because I don't want to talk too much today. I want to maybe afterwards quickly also answer some of your questions that you have. I want to talk about finding the right accommodation, because that, thinking about my study time, was also quite a challenging thing, where you maybe don't think about that too much first, but the time you spend at university, the time you spend like living there as well, on campus or off campus, or the way you want to live, is obviously affecting your years or year you want to spend abroad. So how do you find the right accommodation? So for me, the basics were, first of all, what kind of living accommodation or situation do you want? So do you want to actually really enjoy the local culture, be very close to the local culture? Or is it more like, nah, I want to have my room for myself, and I want to really be, so it depends really on what you would like to do. And there are a few questions to answer, and one of them is, do you want to know what it's like to live in a dorm with other foreign students? Maybe do you want to work on your language skills by staying with a local in a shared apartment and surround yourselves with more local customs? Or you simply want to have your own apartment? So those are different options, and depending on the country, there are either more of one or the other available. So moving forward, the difference between those options. So shared apartment is in some countries the most common way of living. So it's often the cheapest option and also easy to make new friends and get to know the people you live with. For example, when I was studying, so I studied in Austria and then also abroad in Russia, I was always living in a shared apartment. So I enjoyed it a lot in Austria to have people around, but also when I went to Russia, I enjoyed it a lot to live with people who are locals and to learn the language, because that was one of my goals, to understand the local cultures and the language better. The second option, which is also very, very common in Europe, is a dormitory. So usually located on or close to the campus, so you have a bit more privacy because typically you have your small room, but then there are big common areas where you can meet lots of other students. So typically there are sometimes local students, but it's very common that dormitories are full of international students, and it's really typically a really cool group to spend with international students. But then obviously if you really want to have your time and your space, private apartments are also an option, but those are typically the more expensive options to choose from. About living costs in general. So there is a really cool tool with this link. You can also, again, take a screenshot here where you can compare the living costs across Europe. So you get really good estimates of what it's like to, how much does it cost to live in this city, for also different options how to live. And we also, in our UNIspotter app, so if you go to the Google Play Store, you can download the app for free. And if you choose a university, you always have a section about costs. And in those costs, it also shows you the rough living costs that you need to spend in this country, in this city. The next part, so like when I was studying abroad, what was really difficult for me is also to manage my budget. Financial is always a difficult thing. So luckily for me back then, my parents could help me to sponsor some of my accommodation, but I had to finance the rest of my living costs. And I had to really make a good plan every month. How do I actually survive basically with my money every month? And how do I actually spend my money in the right way and in a way that I can also enjoy my study life? So first of all, you want to determine the time span of your budget. You choose a tool to actually manage your budget. So there's an app recommendation that we have, which is Wally. It's a free app. You can also download from the Play Store. And this is really cool where you can create your budget categories, what do you want to spend in each category. And then every month see, okay, am I on track with my budget? Do I spend too much? Do I have some money left? So that's like a very simple tool that helps you a lot with managing your study life. There are lots of questions around shared and private apartments, so especially if you sign a rental agreement with your landlord, you should always check with a few questions. And again here, I don't want to go through all of those questions, but for those of you who are thinking about being in shared or private apartment, please again take a screenshot here. And if you're about to talk with your landlord, try to ask these questions and make sure that you get answers to all those questions, just to make sure, because yeah, you're moving to a new country and you just want to make things right. And those are absolute fine questions you can ask every landlord, and every landlord who is serious will give you really good answers as well. So there's also about the question, safety, but don't sacrificing safety for costs. Especially in larger cities, you should always check, okay, which areas are the good ones, which areas are the ones where typically students live or young people live, where it's safe. So obviously I cannot tell you now for every city in Europe, but if you have really specific questions about where you want to go, in which area you should live. First of all, the university is your touch point. So always ask the university first, well, I'm thinking about living in this area. Then they will suggest to you, well, no, maybe not in this area. This area is most common for students. It's very safe. So I think the university can really guide you well in which areas of the city you want to live. So basically, what I want to say here is you don't want to always take the cheapest option, but you want to take an option that is affordable, but then you have the possibility as well that you actually live in a safe place and really feel comfortable. And the last part is, I know it's a lot of information now about visa, about accommodation, and it's a lot to think about, but don't stress. So the one thing or one advice I always give is plan ahead early, and then you don't have any stress about accommodation or visa. And I just have a few steps here for you, especially that's my kind of step-by-step accommodation guide for you. So first of all, check out what the new university offers, because lots of universities have really helpful information about the housing around and on campus. They give you really good suggestions, and they're very welcoming and opening and show you the opportunities. If that's not possible, obviously you can go on the internet. You can go on Google Maps. Google Street View is a really cool tool. So if you don't know how the area looks like, use Google Street View and just scroll around in the city and see how the area looks like. Do you like it? Is it cool? Are there lots of shops around? Just to get the general feeling of how will the area be where I will be living. So there are a few tools that even if you're not there, you can figure that out. And the last part is about getting a feel for the place. So give yourself a couple of days to get settled in once you're there. Plan to arrive in the country early before the semester starts, so you can get to know the area, you can check out some shops, you can check out where the supermarket is, that you just feel comfortable and safe and don't have all the stress when you arrive and have to go to university immediately, but just take a few days earlier to get to know the city. And yeah,
there are many questions which you need to answer.
Okay,
and
perfect.
you have about 7 to 8 minutes to finish your question answer in the presentation. So would appreciate if you could just, because it's very interesting, and we'll be sharing your presentation on our website as well. So,
perfect. That's great.
Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic. I think that's even the last slide now. So if the presentation is shared afterwards, so this is the best websites we always recommend to look for accommodations. And yeah, I will now jump into the questions you're sending in the chat. So I'm just opening the chat. Cool, I'm just going from the bottom one. So there's Updaf, who's asking, if I choose to take off campus or off-campus accommodation, then campus amenities, dining halls, bookstores, library are accessible to me. So typically, yes. So again, it depends on the university, and if you want to live off campus, there are always possibilities. But always ask the university where you want to stay, where you're planning to stay, or where they suggest you to stay. So then typically you will find places where all this like dining halls, bookstores, and libraries are available.
Christoph, while answering the question, please remember name of 2 Indian students who asked you the best question. We are going to award them with a coupon of 500 rupees.
Okay, I will remember. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Over to you.
So then Ravi is asking, I had problems with visa slot appointments for Poland. Is it the same for Austria as well? So typically Austria is a very bureaucratic country, so things sometimes take some time. But I have not heard of any student who had problems with getting a visa slot appointment for Austria. Then next question is, Murugesh M is asking, is this available in the Buddy Chat app if we use it, or is this going to be shared by Buddy? That's a very good question. So some of the things, especially about visa, is in our UNIspotter app available. So you can find this information there. About accommodation, you can just send us a message on WhatsApp, when we can guide you there step by step. Then there is Jetal Banarkar, who is asking how to use UNIspotter. Simply go to the App Store or the Play Store, search for UNIspotter, and then you can download it for free. And then you can very simply select the study fields you're interested in. You can select the countries you're interested in. You get a list of universities. And then once you move your universities to your favorites and wish lists, in the app, you can always use the chat button. You can get to WhatsApp and always ask us individual questions. And we have lots of resources in the app where you can find lots of information about how to apply and how to build the application. Then there is a question by Abdul Rehman. Which are the best options to study master in civil engineering? Again, very difficult question. There are lots of really good options. It depends on your ideas as well. So civil engineering, I think there are lots of good universities in Northern Europe, but I think every country has a few good options. It really depends on what you're interested in. You can check some options in our app, but feel free to reach out to us on WhatsApp. I will suggest you definitely some options, and I'm pretty sure we can find something. Cool. I'll scroll down now because I think there are a few new questions popping up. Which is the best university for computer science and astrophysics or physics? Is it affordable like Germany's public university fee? It's a question by Vaibhav. So the best university for computer science and astrophysics, again, it depends on if you want to go by ranking. It also depends on what I really care about is what do you want to do afterwards. So you don't want to pick like the best ranked one if you have a very specific focus what you want to do afterwards in your job. If you think about I want to go maybe into research afterwards to do my PhD, then it's worth looking at the rankings. But again, there's a very individual question, and I'm very happy to help you then individually through the app or via WhatsApp. Then there's Mrunal Desai asking about the best sports management university in Europe. Again, very good question. We have a few really good sports universities, for example, in the UK, in Spain, in Germany as well. Again, it depends on which kind of direction do you want to go. Is it more a focused sports program or sports management program in towards football or something? Then it might be the UK or Spain. But if you want to check for other sports, like winter sports, for example, a few really good universities in Austria or France. So different options, but definitely something for you. Then there's a question, that's a good question. Gautam Nalatambi asking any impact on the stay back after Brexit for UK students? No, so if you arrive next year, if you plan to study next year, then there will be definitely no problem with stay back in terms of the Brexit. What happens the year afterwards if you want to start studying in 2021? Nobody knows yet, but for 2020, you should be safe. Then there's a question by Murugesh regarding Buddy. Buddy, was he some stuff in the university or a student? So that's a very, very good question. We have several buddies. Some universities have been stuff at universities, and some universities have been also working with students in India on the ground for more than 15 years. So they have lots of experience. They have been studying abroad. I also support students, especially going to Germany or Austria. And I have not been working in a university, but I work very closely with universities, for example. So it's typically a mix of either someone who has been working in a university or someone who has been at least abroad or lots of experience with universities. Then, okay. Okay, which is the best university in Germany for computer science and public university? Asked by Tamish Arsan. Again, there are lots of really good public universities. The TUM in Munich is a really good one. But again, it depends on what you want to do in the future. They're really good options. Cool.
Okay, then, Christoph, it's time for you to select the 2 best questions. You have already given your WhatsApp number, and students can feel free to ask questions there. We will be sharing with you the list of students who attended the session with the questions they asked. So, what do you, Christoph, to select the 2 Indian students who asked the best question?
Great. I think one of the questions that was really good and that didn't clarify was by Murugesh at M at the end regarding buddy.
Okay,
if a buddy is someone, yeah.
Okay, so here's one second question, second what today, okay?
Exactly. The second one was a bit before. Let me check.
Question.
Oh, there are so many questions.
I know that.
What was before? Oh wow! I didn't see that so many questions popped in afterwards. I don't remember. It was one of the very first ones. Oh yeah, I think it was about. I had problems with the. It was by Teja Ravi. I had problems with the visa slot appointment for Poland. Is it the same for Austria? Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much, Christoph. Thanks for your
Great.
time.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sure the students who were attending has a lot of information about now, and they know whom to contact if they want to go and study in Europe. So thank you very much. Now we'll move to the next speaker.
Great. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, same to you.